I don't know what it is, but every time I internally think of this game's name, I always want to say a woohoo afterwards. Well, that's at least one point in its favor. Crosstales, a woohoo, is going to be available digitally in the West for the price of $30 on the eShop. There is currently no physical release in the West, but there is a physical release in Japan and Asian regions that does have English on the Switch, PS4 and PS5. If you want to import a physical version, check the links below and use our discount code as well. All the details are in the description. Crosstales, a woohoo, is a strategy RPG from the dudes at Kemco. Contrary to their usual entry price JRPG releases that you may have seen on the Switch or any system really, this was developed by a team called Ridion. They developed Blacksmith of the Sand Kingdom, which was always a step up in scope, a mid-range RPG compared to what you may be used to with their logo slapped on it. And Crosstales, a woohoo, is the same. It's a big step up from the likes of Revenant Dogma or As Divine Hearts. This is a strategy RPG that pits cats against dogs. It's the age-old clash of good versus evil. I'll let you decide which one is the evil one, but it's obviously cats. Weirdly, there are no ducks in this game, which I feel is an oversight. There are two story paths to follow, either the Dog Kingdom from the viewpoint of Felix, and the Cat People from the viewpoint of Shaima. Already, I think we can all see the grave error here. An unbelievable oversight. Why is the dog called Felix? Felix is a cat's name. It's literally in the scientific name, Felis catus. You couldn't have picked a worse name for a dog. It's going to be hard for me to take this game seriously already, but try your best because actually, Crosstales, a woohoo, is one of the biggest surprises of the year for me. If you like Final Fantasy Tactics, well, so does the developer of Crosstales, a woohoo. Gameplay style is unashamedly a clone. Inspiration is too light of a word. They liked Final Fantasy Tactics, they wanted more Final Fantasy Tactics, so they made Final Fantasy Tactics, just with cats and dogs. And that's good for me, because I like cats and dogs, and I also like Final Fantasy Tactics. It's one of the best games ever made, that many other games have taken inspiration from, but rarely go the whole hog. They've either not looked deep enough as to why Tactics is awesome, or they just couldn't be asked to put that much effort into it. Or they felt the need to add their own twist and gimmick to take it further away from the Tactics feeling. But Crosstales, a woohoo, man, I applaud their effort. Everything I love about Final Fantasy Tactics, everything I love about the genre is in here, just about. And I'm kind of shocked. The game flows through chapters, each signified by one story-related battle. You have your story-important characters, but also hireable hands. They can each be assigned a job class, starting off with your base warrior, and leveling them up like your job level. They will unlock more job types, like an archer, priest, monks, and you need combinations of certain jobs to make even more jobs. There is a lot of room for combinations and passive job abilities. You can equip the main job, but also have a secondary one to apply bonuses from skills you've unlocked from different jobs. Skills for each of them are based on money rather than job points, which is one of the few deviations from Tactics, and they have a small but effective skill tree of various abilities. Crosstales, a woohoo, seems to focus on buffs and debuffs, pumping yourself up before getting to the melee. Usually I do that by talking to myself in the mirror, but you know, using magical abilities works as well. There are a lot, and I mean a lot of attack varieties, each with small variations. Maybe one will give them poison, one slow, one to seal their magic, one to lower their attacks, just so much stuff, maybe too much. It's quite overwhelming, you don't know which one to upgrade. I just appreciate the amount of effort put into the customization because you really can put together your own builds very easily, experiment with. It feels like you're making good progress all the time and opening up new options. Even just small touches like the unit's faith, you can change what they believe in order to boost certain aspects of their stats or abilities. And there are interesting things like aggro, also known as hate in this game. The more you perform abilities and attacks, the more your hate number will go up, which means enemy units are far more likely to target that person. This can be used to your advantage to draw attention to your more tanky units and away from your glass cannons. I love the fact that turns are based on your speed. One of the biggest disappointments for me in strategy games is when developers follow the Fire Emblem route, where your entire team goes first, then the enemy's team. I prefer it based on the individual speed of a unit. For me, that feels way more tense. I know that's just a personal preference, but I am very, very happy it's used here because other Final Fantasy Tactics clones, they very rarely go for that preference. I guess it's just easier to do that, but I don't know. I'm not a developer, what do I know? The level design is very interesting. I love the verticality of many of the stages, not just because it's visually interesting, but tactically too. Crosstails, or woohoo, isn't afraid to give advantages and disadvantages based on your positioning. Are you higher than them? Are you behind them? It's weird how such a fascinating and tactical aspect is either missed or watered down by other strategy RPGs, but here, they know it's a fun part of the experience. There's variety not only in the design, but in mission goals, like protecting this caravan or a particular character. Variety is the spice of life, and Crosstails, woohoo, they know that. The challenge is also pretty solid. It's not a walkover, and very often I found myself going into the next battle straight away thinking, ooh, am I slightly unprepared for this? Am I over my head? Only just to pull through at the end. It can be quite tough, at least it feels it. I like the challenge. Of course, you can replay older maps just without the story goal attached to them in order to beef up your team. Earn experience to level up your stats and jobs, and of course, earn money to buy better equipment and unlock better skills and buffs on your skill tree. If you enjoy strategy games that aren't a pushover, you will enjoy this. Of course, it's not brutally difficult because although your fainted foes do have a countdown timer, it's not a timer to death. It's just a timer until they disappear from the map and can't be revived. They won't earn any XP for the victory, but they can be used in the next battle. This happened quite a lot to me because I was tighter than the pockets of my skinny jeans as a teenager. I didn't want to buy the overpriced revival medicine. It's also a damn long game. Each character story is more than 30 chapters long, and even then, there are multiple endings, which is another handful of chapters on top of that. This is an absolutely content-rich game, and you will get your money's worth here. So it's all going well, but I do have a few complaints, mostly minor stuff. I think the story is the biggest issue. It's not that the story is bad or anything, it is actually half decent and does have its intrigue, but I do find the English to be a little bit stiff. It is not the most inspired localization, it's super dry, with odd phrasings and sentence structures, which makes it feel less human, and therefore more difficult to connect with the characters. Now, I'm not saying they should have gone all NIS America on us and have had them all like millennials, but just speaking like a human would have been enough. And I know what you're gonna say, they're cats and dogs. Fine, I've tried 9 years teaching my dog English, but she don't talk like this. She can only say sausages. Other small things, like not being able to differentiate between ally and enemy units easily at a glance, they all just look the same, and only the colour of their health bar is the quick way to see. Mages, they need to be carried way too much. I really tried having mages in the party, but their attack power wasn't worth the fact they could often get one-shotted, and that's even with the best equipment money could buy. I think there could have been better balancing there. But aside from these, Crosstails woohoo has really impressed me. Now, this is going to be available digitally for $30 standard price on the Switch eShop. It's only a digital release in the West, at least that's been announced so far at the time of writing this, but it will be available physically in Japan, and currently it's a bit cheaper than digitally. $25 you can get a physical version that will contain English. Pop it in your Switch, and it will be English. It's genius. So you can keep it forever even when the Switch's online is dead, or you can sell it on to get your money back. There's even a PS4 and PS5 physical release available. If you want that physical version, because it's obviously the sensible way to go, check the links below and get a discount as well with the code SWTV23, and you can support us at the same time, and I massively appreciate that. In terms of production, visually, I actually quite like this style. It's simple 3D, but stylized with some weird, overzealous cell shading and outlining. There's more outlines here than on my YouTube thumbnails. For a story that's about war, political turmoil, it's a bit overly bright. It doesn't suit the tone of the game, but it does its job. And I appreciate the small amounts of animation from the character models during cutscenes, as well as different facial expressions in the character artwork. It just goes a step above what other smaller indie tactics games would do in terms of their presentation. And the music, also pretty great as well. Overall, it's a strategy RPG that has a lot going for it. It may not be Final Fantasy Tactics, but I mean, literally nothing is. But of all the wannabes that I've played, this is certainly one with a lot going for it. It has almost everything I personally look for in strategy games, but maybe just like a step lower, like just one step lower. It falters in its narrative and epicness, which is what I truly look for in these games, and I think that's mostly down to the English, but this has been one of the biggest surprises of the year for me since I wasn't expecting much at all. I thought it was just a quick disposable experience, but that's not the case at all. Cross Tales, a woohoo, is a pretty great game, and aside from the stiff dialogue and minor nitpicks, it's one that strategy RPG fans will definitely want to take a look at, and it will take you a long time. You'll get your money's worth, an 8 out of 10. A really nice surprise. Add a point onto that if you really like DuckTales, woohoo. And yeah, of course, if you want to pick this up physically, check the links in the description. It's much better than digitally, guys. Everyone knows this. And it does help us out, so of course I want you to do that. If you want more RPG goodness, then check out my other channel, A Bit More Jordan, for a lot more me. I talk about RPGs for like hours and hours, alright? And yeah, if you watched all the way through, I want to know who you are. So in the comments, please leave me an emoji of a duck. A woohoo.